Welcome to the BrettJohnson.biz podcast, where we discuss business on purpose, radically fresh leadership, capital that transforms society, and marketplace stories that embolden difference makers. Well, welcome to the Repurposing Business podcast. What a delight to have Jason Fleagle with me today. Jason, welcome.
Thank you, Brett. So glad to be here. I'm excited about this conversation. I know we've talked a lot offline about the exciting summit we've got going on. So yeah, I'm excited to dive a little bit deeper here with you.
This is great. And Jason, one of the things that strikes me is, the theme of this summit, dealing with Web3 and all that related stuff. I suspect there's a bunch of people out there thinking, one day, I'll think about this one day. But this, for me, seems to be such an important time and an important time to be thinking about it right at the beginning of this year. And so I'm really excited about the summit coming up.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm excited to have you there, Brett, as a speaker. So very excited to have you. And then we've got, I think, 35 plus other awesome speakers from different backgrounds, leaders of ministries, preachers, tech leaders, business experts. So, but yeah, the timing is interesting. Me personally, I feel called by God to help organize an event like this. It was at least 10 to 11 years ago, I felt God calling me into this space to be a part of a Christian tech like conference or summit. And the timing was never right. And then for some reason with 2023, all of these prophecies, like James Gall, especially, he started talking about Christians, like God is speaking to him. Christians are going to start embracing metaverse technologies, AR, VR, Web3, NFT, cryptocurrency technologies, and it's going to massively impact the way that they share the gospel, and God works through those technologies. So for whatever reason, now is the time, and
That's
all
awesome.
of the pieces are starting to come together.
Yeah, Jason, you're taking me back to 1996 when in Silicon Valley we ran a conference called Christians and the Internet, and people are like, what's the internet? How does this work? And we told them, look, one day missions is going to happen over the internet, and people looked at us with suspicion. But I think we're at a just as big a fulcrum time in history. And, there's lots of uncertainty with central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, with the World Economic Forum, the global reset, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, the Klaus Schwab stuff, as well as just political uncertainty and all of those things. And I think many believers can feel, wow, this is overwhelming. But I see that you see an opportunity in this. You think, in fact, part of what you said is this can be great for individuals and for societies. Unpack that a bit for me.
Yeah, absolutely. So the full webpage that we've got at forum12.com unpacks like the specifics in more detail on like how Web3 can like go through the benefits of how this can empower Christians. But the very simple way is blockchain technologies, thanks to Satoshi Nakamoto, when he or they created this Bitcoin, this cryptocurrency. The fundamental technology is called blockchain. So it's this kind of peer-to-peer network that different computers all around the world power this network and are rewarded in tokens. But you then have this cryptocurrency to trade back and forth. So that fundamental like network is totally transparent. It's a way for Brett, you to send me something, and it's on a public ledger. So everything's open, it's transparent. If you look at the statistics for Christian like nonprofits, foundations, there's billions of dollars every year that goes to fraud, embezzlement, things like that. Well, if it were on the blockchain, now you can see every little transaction that happens. So from a transparency perspective, it's incredible. And then you mentioned central banks. If it's outside of the central banking system, you own your own assets, you own your own currency, you own those. So, and then you're free to decide, oh, me, Jason, I want to send something to Brett, but I don't need, a bank or an intermediary to control that. And then from the data perspective, like even a my data on social networks like Facebook or Twitter, like a big tech company owns that technically. I don't.
Yeah.
But now, thanks to blockchain, you can actually what's called tokenize that. You can create that data as a way, oh, Jason, I can grant this data to share it with whatever so it really puts the ownership back into the individual.
Yeah.
And then because of that networking mechanism, when you have individuals using it that way, you then have this collective way to actually do good. So you start using that thousands, millions of people around the world. Like a good example is the Carbon 12 token that was launched December 23rd. As people buy and sell like a cryptocurrency, a percentage can go into a fund that's like supports ministries, nonprofits, like that transparent way of also giving back, where you don't have to trust other people because the trust is built into a blockchain, and you can have full transparency there. So those are some of the main ways like Web3 technologies, blockchain can really help empower Christians around the world. And then we've been seeing it for donations, especially.
Yeah.
So in the US, sending donations to like the Philippines or these other places in Africa, you have to use, Western Union or some of these other wire transfer companies that they charge ridiculous amounts. While now with cryptocurrency, you can send that money almost to them instantaneously, and they have the ability to transfer it into a local currency. So that ability there is also a big use case.
Yeah, and for some people listening, they might think, well, what's the big deal? We can use Bank of America, Wells Fargo, or Citibank or something. But actually, countries are clamping down, particularly when it comes to the nonprofit space. So our friends who are working in India, for example, you can't just send $100,000 to a nonprofit over there or to a ministry, because they're going to say, no way, you can't do it. And they're clamping down on those type of things. So that's one thing. And then the other thing to just highlight for people is that the world of banking is very opaque. If you're going to transfer a big number, like $1 million or $10 million or something, it will get locked up somewhere on somebody's desk in the system by design. It's going to be, the longer they can hold it up, the more they can use the money. And if it does ever make it through the other side, it's just a very, very opaque world. And yet the Web3 technologies make it transparent. I'm reminded a bit of 1 Corinthians 12, where you have a democratization of spiritual gifts, which is kind of interesting. That's what happened when Jesus came. He's like, all of you, Jason, you're going to be a minister. Brett, you're going to be a minister. Everybody's going to be a minister. The hierarchy is going to be gone in a sense. There will be order, but there will be transparency, and there will be a democratization of the gifts of the Spirit, of the ministry of God. Now we have that at a technology level, at a currency level, would you say?
Absolutely. Yeah. And I love the way you put that, the democratization there, because that's something we're definitely seeing. I've been wrestling with that personally, building my own companies or working with companies around the world. I know, Brett, you're in the similar space, doing consulting work. And some of the things I've seen, especially in Christian businesses and business owners, is there's this disconnect with Christian ministry versus Christian business, and they think that they're not connected. Well, one of my favorite books by Ed Silvaso is Anointed for Business. And he talks about, I won't give it away, but the book is really, really good on unpacking this dichotomy there. For some reason, we think that ministry is what preachers do. And then business people, we're not in ministry, but God has called us to where we're at with our particular platforms as a ministry. So even our business, nonprofit, whatever that is, God has placed us there. And then we can use that as a tool to share the gospel. And that's what really blockchain and Web3 tools can allow for, is this empowering, the democratization of using technology to further the gospel. So as a consultant, now you've got these transparent tools, these ways to really better connect with people in a transparent, free way, without a government, a big central bank, a big tech company telling you, oh, yes, you can go ahead and do that, Jason. Yeah, you can go talk to Brett, where we now have the freedom to do that as we decide.
Jason, what about trade? Do you see trading among believers becoming more and more important because of what goes on in the world systems, and having a platform to support this? Unpack that a bit for me.
Yeah, I mean, no matter your opinion on, the end times, it's in scripture, it's pretty clear it's going to be coming. Now, I can't say that that's next year, 20 years from now, none of us can really say for sure, but
Mhm.
that time will be coming. And now, thanks to Web3 technologies, we have that system that can be a weapon, a way to fight back, to continue to trade back and forth within our own ecosystems.
Yeah,
Now, I'm a big believer in having ecosystems that you can trade back and forth in Christian communities,
yeah,
but I'm the big believer it should be for every person. So
right.
not just Christians, it should be because in my opinion, Christians have fallen off the last 60 to 70 years
Yeah,
from a position of leadership because they secluded themselves out of the
right.
world in these positions of leadership in business and science, where you look at the past, for thousands of years, Christians were the scientists, they were the business leaders, they were the experts. And
Yeah.
now, even that's a big theme with the summit, is unite these Christian leaders, these business people, these preachers all around the world that are
Yeah.
seeing that call that
Mm.
God is saying, rise up, leaders, now's the time. For whatever reason, it's like,
Mm.
now's the time, let's unite. So the
Yeah,
time is coming, and I think the trade back and forth with Christians is
yeah,
important, but
yeah.
it's the people who understand the call, recognize it, and are taking action, and not just kind of sitting on their hands, if that makes sense, Brett.
Yeah. Now, Jason, I'm a little bit allergic to, the one Christian movement or crypto or whatever that's going to be the answer to
Mhm.
world tension. But
Mhm.
that by definition is not the case with Web3 because it's really a network of networks.
That's
It's
right.
layers of technology and it's lots of independence. I mean, blockchain itself, it's the independence of the thing and the transparency of the thing that empowers it. So would you say that that's a unfounded fear to think, oh, I'll go to this conference, but it's a closed, tight loop? Do you see it as a more open thing? What are your hopes coming
Yeah.
out of this?
Yeah, that's a great question. The hope really is that this is a turning point for Christians all around the world to recognize, number one, that they're not alone
Mhm.
in like seeing and recognize the potential of these tools. And then two, there's a lot more Christians in this space than they realize.
Yeah,
I think at the summit right now, we have 40 to 50 Christian organizations just represented in the speakers and the people helping out behind the scenes. That's
yeah,
not including the awesome attendees that have already purchased tickets that are in like venture capital investing. There's a lot of people that are going to be there where you're not alone. You see
yeah,
these tools, recognize the power of it, where I think it's going to be this good foundational turning the tide kind of movement where Christians are going to see, hey, this is a big thing,
mm,
and we're building actually a community from this.
yeah,
The summit is kind of just the starting point. There's
yeah,
actually a community of Christians in Web3 that is forming from this. And then more importantly, we're also forming this group of the builders, the people who are like entrepreneurial, whether in the nonprofit space or the for-profit space, that are building these awesome projects and organizations that
yeah,
can then equip these people in the community to go out and build or be a part, volunteer, potentially get a job at a company in this space. So that's really the next stage from the summit that I see happening. And it's happening naturally, even
mm,
behind the scenes as we're getting ready for the summit. Conversations are happening. We've got like a Slack community already set up in preparation for the summit, and the
yeah,
speakers, some of the attendees are already like trading back
yeah,
and forth.
yeah,
It's like really cool to see that happening. But the
yeah,
whole purpose of the summit is not like, we don't want to direct people to a particular like cryptocurrency or an NFT, or we want an open forum to say, hey, here's the people who are out there
mhm,
as the body of Christ. How can we best integrate with each other?
yeah,
So yeah, I mean, internally, even Forum 12, we have our own internal projects and companies we're building,
yeah,
but we want to partner and integrate with all other, projects out there in the Christian space as much as possible. If
yeah,
there's another group doing something better, hey, let's work with them to, do that and integrate that. That's really what I've seen. I know, Brett, you've done a lot of work in the Silicon Valley area. I've done a lot in the past as well, and they have this amazing ecosystem of trading and access to resources and,
yeah,
this synergy. And I think from the summit, at a small level, that's what we're starting to form with what's happening here. So I'm excited, yeah, for the future, but it's not necessarily a closed system. We want it to be as open as much as we can, and find those leaders that are like, oh, this is the place for me. Oh, I hear what they're saying. I want to, be a part of this, whatever it takes.
Yeah. Yeah, I think the summit's going to do a great job just informing people and like, here are the variables, here are the things that are on the table. I didn't know that was possible. I didn't know that was possible. Those people are doing something cool. I think it's going to be an enriching time. And just looking at the list of speakers and the different perspectives and the places they come from. So I think it's going to be great. And I think particularly I've been rewriting one of my books called Restart, which I wrote during the pandemic. And, I think there's many believers who haven't actually restarted coming out of the pandemic. In other words, they're still a bit stuck. They're a bit fearful. They just haven't got their oomph back. And I'm hoping that this is going to be an opportunity for people to get fired up again and say, yeah, not only am I fired up, but there are a set of enabling technologies that can take me in a new direction. And I can reset my foundations for a fresh future if I understand this stuff. If I don't understand it, I'm going to be doing same old, same old. It's a little bit like, way back in the day, you got the bricks and mortar stuff, then you get the internet, and some people were like, yeah, the internet, who cares? And then you got the people who were born digital, born wired, and there'll be a new generation that's born in Web3 and so forth. But for many, we're going to have to learn the language and understand the tools. And I think the summit will be great in that regard.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's the biggest theme that we've seen is I don't want people to look at the speakers or look at the talks and assume these are all very great experts and it's all technical information. We actually have different levels of understanding in the different kind of breakout tracks. So we have 3 different tracks actually at the summit that ranges from the speakers themselves are totally beginners in Web3. They're just exploring what it is, how can it work in their organization. I know Stuart Cranny from Christian Vision is one of our speakers, actually kind of unpacking that and exploring that, because Christian Vision is a really recognizable Christian organization, and they have been a leader in using technology, to do discipleship and ministry. And now they're exploring ways to use Web3. Well, it's totally transparent, authentic. Stuart's like, we're trying to find what's the best tool to integrate. We have a tech hosting provider, Patmos, that's coming and speaking at the event. They don't do anything in Web3 yet, but they are transparent and saying, hey, we're actively exploring it. We want to connect with other Christians, and we potentially want to provide Web3 solutions as a tech provider. So it's from varying levels of understanding. I've been in the Web3 space since 2012, but I'm still learning new things every day. So in some circles, I'm seen as an expert, but I think being teachable and still recognizing that, and being humble and recognizing, hey, we all have a lot to learn here, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't get into this space. It's the best time to get into the space.
So for the discerning listeners, you'll be picking up that Jason's actually telling you that Brett's going to be in the Web3 for Dummies track. But
I will gladly throw myself in there too, Brett.
Well, it's actually good because it is such a fluid space, and I think it's easy to hear the jargon and to be put off by it. But the opportunities for expanding the kingdom of God in a relatively low-cost way. It's not like you're building out a big corporate. There's ways for people in closed access countries, in difficult industries. I think one of the challenges when you're trying to repurpose an industry to change an industry is the incumbent players are so entrenched. And yet, would you say that there's opportunities with Web3 type technologies to upset that apple cart a bit?
Yeah, absolutely. Some of the internal conversations we've been having a lot with in countries that you wouldn't necessarily think are starting to embrace this technology, primarily in the Philippines, in Nigeria especially. So there's a lot of countries. Something's happening in Africa. I don't know what it is. God is doing miraculous things there. I mean, I can definitely speak, obviously being in the States, that things are happening. but there's places in China, like we've got a guest speaker coming all the way from Shanghai, China, and she is a world leader actually in Asia as like a 30 under 30 entrepreneur building multiple companies. But as a Christian, she can't openly share her faith. So now she's wanting to use decentralized tools, Web3 tools, to share the gospel with people in China because the government is so hostile to people of the Christian faith. So that's, I think, a good example there where, you know, in other more traditionally Western countries, we take it for granted that we have a lot of these freedoms. But in a lot of other countries around the world, those people do not have the same access to those freedoms, let alone resources like micro lending and things like that, where now with decentralized tools, Web3 tools, you have that ability to do that. Like imagine if Hope International, Peter Greer, I've met, know him pretty well. Imagine if they start doing their micro lending loans around the world that they're doing with cryptocurrencies and remove that third, you know, the middleman, the intermediary, the banking system between that. You now have this freedom to impact even more people and be more efficient. You have the ability to save time and also financial resources. So I think it is a big overturning the apple cart kind of opportunity for sure. But it also comes with a dedication to doing that with, you know, being a good steward. There's a right way to do that, I think, and a wrong way to do that. And as Christians, we are called to do things with excellence. So, you know, also doing things with moral integrity as Scripture outlines it, and doing the things the right way with those, you know, serving other people, I think is going to be really important because Web3 technologies, it's important to remember that this is a tool. It's just like anything in life. And if you use it the right way, it's great. But if you use it the wrong way, it can hurt a lot of people, like SBF with FTX and everything that happened with that cryptocurrency and exchange and everything. That's a good example of them using and manipulating people with that tool. But that means more Christians now have a bigger responsibility to get in there and show, hey, these tools can be used for good. And it's important to also remember that there's big centralized powers, governments, banking institutions that are actively funding people to not get in this space because it is a threat to a lot of the control that they now hold on people. So yeah, that's where a personal responsibility, a calling on my own life is to be involved in this space, educate people on the power of these tools, because it is truly life-changing in a way that we've never seen before.
Yeah. So Jason, let's just say somebody decides to come along. They can either attend virtually or in person to come along to the conference. So tell us a bit about the in-person people first. What's going to happen? What's going to be the flow? What can they expect should they decide to come to Tulsa, Oklahoma?
Yeah, it is. So the in-person experience is truly amazing. If you can be there in person, I highly recommend it. But if you can't make the trip over, we're actually using a tool called GatherTown. So a lot of tech companies use this as a way that you get a little avatar and you can kind of walk around using your keyboard or your smartphone and talk to people, use your mic on there. But the in-person experience is definitely, I highly recommend it. So the cost of the ticket actually includes all your meals, everything that you need, swag items, like access to the digital library of all the recordings from the talks. So again, we're having 3 tracks happening at the same time. So there's a lot of learning material, content that you can get access to. If you're going to a talk and you're like, ah, man, I really wish I can listen to that too. Well, you'll also have access to the digital library to do that. But day one, opening session, we've got Ryan Collins, the CEO of Bethel Tech, opening keynote. Then we've got Jen and Luke Ritchie from Gravity Jack talking about revolutionary patent pending AR social network technologies being used in the Web3 space. Lunchtime, and then breakout sessions. So amazing people like Brett is going to be speaking and talking. Again, we've got 35 plus speakers from different varying levels, different backgrounds, people in the media and streaming space. We've got, you know, tech leaders of tech companies. We've got just local pastors, designers, UI and UX designers, people from really all kind of walks of life. We really wanted to try to give this a very diverse perspective and audience. We have some Wall Street traders actually that are going to be speaking on there. And then the first evening, we actually will have plenty of times to go meet these other companies, ministries in the space through our like networking and sponsor booth hall. And then we'll actually have a catered dinner. Mike Matthews, the VP of Innovation over at Oral Roberts University, one of the leaders now in Christian and university space using like Web3 and metaverse technologies. He's going to be talking from the university perspective, how they're using Web3 technologies in what they're doing. And we also have Elizabeth Clark, a singer-songwriter, very gifted. She's going to be doing a musical performance that first evening. And then we'll have plenty of time for networking, open networking to get to connect with all the attendees, speakers. Yeah. Again, the sponsor booth hall, we've got good amount of sponsors there. And then day 2, similar kind of structure, but we've got Nick Rotella, the founder of the Web3 NYC Gallery. He's a serial entrepreneur, also an Oral Roberts University alumnus. So he's going to be talking a lot. Really excited to have him there. Other main speakers, again, varying different topics and levels of degrees of involvement in Web3. And then we actually have a project pitch night this evening that we're going to be doing. So it's going to be any leaders of any projects, a business can go up there and you get 5 minutes to talk about your project. It can be in the Web3 space, or it can be all about what you plan to do in the Web3 space. But the idea is to show you, if you got something to talk about or share, get on stage, pitch that project so everyone can hear about it. And then after that, we will have, again, an open networking kind of time where we'll actually vote collectively, talking about which Christian project has been having the greatest impact in the Web3 space, because you'll be able to hear about it from those project leaders themselves. And then if we have time, we'll actually use a decentralized autonomous organization, a DAO, for a transparent way to do the voting of that. We're trying to work that in. I know we're a few weeks out, so if we can, we'll do that. If not, we're going to just use a form to do the voting. And then again, open networking that we'll have. And then day 3 is all really focused on unpacking some of the things that we've learned and action and impact. So we'll walk through some of these ways where you've heard all of this awesome content and education materials and learning. Here's how you can get plugged in. If you're an individual at your local church, here's what you can do potentially. If you're a builder, an entrepreneur, here's what you can do. And we want to give information on a hackathon that we'll be releasing sometime in the near future for those builders that want to build something in this space, whether that's software, or you're a designer, or you're a relationship builder and you want to help build communities or relationships with people. I don't want people to think you have to be technical to do this. No, you definitely don't. Any skills that God has given you and equipped you with, we want to work with you and get you plugged in if you want to, and the right fit for you. And then we'll have this amazing sending off and blessing ceremony with all the project leaders and the leaders of the summit. We're going to get on there and we're going to pray in the Spirit and bless everyone that's there and bless this new turning point experience. We've received 7 different kind of prophetic dreams and visions from preachers, people calling us saying, whatever you're doing at this summit, I don't even know about it yet. This 3rd day, God is going to work some miraculous change. It is the turning point for something in Christianity. That is the singular kind of message we keep hearing and receiving from these prophetic dreams and visions. So I can't give you an exact answer what that looks like. I just know God is going to be there, and something is going to unlock and change for the future of Christianity.
So Jason, where do people go to sign up? How can they sign up for the conference?
So the best place is forum12.com. So forum, the numbers 12.com. And then up top in the navigation menu, there's going to be a button to click on the Web3 Summit, or the direct link is forum12.com/web3, the number 3-summit. And that's where they can go to learn more about all the speakers, the format of the event, this full schedule, places to stay. If you're going to come in person, I highly recommend it. If not, there's more information on the digital experience, and then also the link to claim your tickets.
Great. Fantastic, Jason. That's great. I've had people reach out to me already, say they're going to be there. Look forward to having a coffee with each other and connect. So, Jason, thanks so much for sharing about this. I think it's going to be great. It's going to be a rich time. And I like the idea that we're going to be standing on tiptoes just to see what God's going to do. We don't know yet. It's not all baked. Nobody's going to try to sell you anything when you get there, but it's going to be an empowering event, and we'll be able to learn from each other, discover, and just get a sense as to what the Father is up to. So thanks so much for that.
Thank you, Brett, so much for having me.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
Yeah, I did want to mention, so something that God has been definitely sharing with me, kind of an analogy or even a parable to relate this summit. The dream or the vision I keep getting and receiving from God is just like God said to Moses, what do you have in your hands? And at the time it was that staff, and he worked miracles through that staff. And today God is saying the same exact things to us now. What do you have in your hands? And it is these Web3 technologies. It's these tools now that he's going to work these miraculous things through that we can't even really comprehend. All he's calling us is to take action, to follow through, to be obedient. So that's really where I see this happening. And the biggest thing, if you know that story of when Moses went to the Pharaoh, what did the magicians or those sorcerers from Pharaoh do? They turned their staffs into serpents as well. And what did God's staff with the snake do? It gobbled up the rest of them. And I think that's a good indicator where there's been some bad players in this space, but now God is raising up the right leaders to get in this space. And guess what he's going to do? He's going to gobble up all those bad players, and he's going to be the winner in the end.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. The Restart book is 50 principles from Exodus about restarting. And, eventually it's amazing. Awesome. The one thing that gets them is the net. They couldn't replicate the net. And I thought to myself, just this tiniest little thing, and how God can use something tiny to people say, okay, surely this is the finger of God. And I would love nothing more than people to attend, to sit there and to say, okay, this was the finger of God. This was pivotal in my business, in my career, in my strategy for the future. So Jason, thanks so much. And I look forward to seeing you in Tulsa.
Absolutely. So excited to meet you. So excited to meet all the listeners here and everyone that we've got slated in to come into town.
Great. Thanks, Jason. Thanks so much. God bless you.
Thank you. God bless.
Bye-bye.